This is the Brave Ideas Podcast, brought to you by Aqua.
Welcome to episode 15 of the Brave Ideas Podcast, the show that is all about bringing to light fresh perspectives from the worlds of digital and marketing. I'm Dan Herman. I'm a digital strategist, a mastermind, and a rejected Avenger, and I'm here today with my brand spanking new co-host.
I'm Esther, Head of Conversation Analytics, right-arm over fast bowler, lover of all things concerning both elephants and the sea together. And we would love to hear your opinion on our show. Please email us, braveideas@aquaonline.com, or follow us on social media at Aqua Agency on Facebook, Twitter and LinkedIn, or Brave Ideas Podcast on Instagram.
Today, we're talking to Elena Protulis, Head of Social at Aqua. Elena, known to me as Eldorado Park, is a new mom who used to be obsessed with Steven Gerrard and is now no longer, because he no longer plays for Liverpool. And today, she's going to talk to us about women in technology. Elena, what's new?
Hi Dan, hi Esther, it's great to be here. Firstly, I still love Steven Gerrard. It's not because he's left Liverpool. I recently had a baby and just came back from maternity leave, so I've been back a couple of weeks now, back into the swing of things. And what interests me is the lack of women in our industry. And the reason this came about is, having gone on maternity leave, I started reading quite a bit of literature in terms of, how you can balance having a child and working in this industry.
What were some of those real, thoughts, or even if they were fears, perhaps, going into maternity leave as a female leader in the tech industry?
As we know, working in this industry, it's full on. It's not a 9-to-5 job, so you're always online. We work in digital, you're never disconnected. We don't work in jobs where you can read a textbook and that's how you apply it to work. You have to be constantly keeping update with the latest trends. And I think it's just being able to balance having a family and also being online and keeping up to date with what's happening. Because at the end of the day, we need to be at the forefront of what's going on.
So, El, I know that there are emerging female leaders across the world. So people like Sheryl Sandberg, who's the CEO of Facebook, is a great example of someone who has come into the industry, made a huge impact, but is also a woman and has broken the mold of the conventional perspective of a male-dominated tech industry. So I'd be quite interested to know if you have any statistics or facts around women in the tech industry that you could share with us today.
Definitely, Dan. So some interesting stats. In South Africa, 23% of tech jobs are held by women, and 29% across the US are held by women, which is a really small amount if you think about other industries. We definitely need to see a massive change in that, and there should literally be 50-50. You mentioned Sheryl Sandberg. I read one of her books, Lean In, before I went on maternity leave, and her Lean In is about where you lean into work or you lean into a family and where it's important. And she's an amazing role model for me because she is Chief Commercial Officer of Facebook, and she also has kids, and she balances those two worlds. And she has some really interesting points in terms of how to go about doing this. And I think what she's pioneering within the company is to have a lot more equality of female versus male. There's also another role model that I look up to is Marissa, Meyer, who's CEO of Yahoo. And she also driving that equality. And I think a lot of the big companies in the US are trying to drive more females into the tech industry. Interestingly enough, and very controversially, is Marissa Meyer, when she took 6 weeks of maternity leave before she went back to work. And there were a lot of people that criticized her for that. But for her, she was like, this is an industry that's always moving. She's in a top role, took 6 weeks, and she was back at work. So, who says what's right and wrong?
It's absolutely fascinating to me because I think what you're talking about are two major points. The first point is that it's challenging enough as it is as a mother and a business leader, no matter where you are in the world, to come in and out of a work environment and manage a family. And it takes a lot. You get a lot of learnings and a lot of different sort of skills and ideas from doing that. But interestingly, and bringing it back to the local context, it's also really fascinating that this doesn't appear to be an industry or a country that encourages female leaders. I mean, 23% is a really low proportion of female leaders in the industry. I just went to the Digital Edge this year, and it was really instructive to me that possibly 90% of the CEOs who were talking that day were males. I mean, I don't know what you think, Esther, about the state of the local industry. Do you think that we've still got a way to go?
No, you're right. Specifically in this industry, that's completely male-dominated at the top. And my question, perhaps, Elena, you can weigh in on this. Why is that? What is it that needs to change?
Esther, I think there's a huge lack of role models locally. I've touched on globally and internationally. You've got the likes of Marissa, Meyer and Sheryl Sandberg. But who do we have locally that people are looking up to? And I think that's really missing. Like Dan said, at the Digital Edge this year, you see it's dominated by white male CEOs. We're the women that are representing. That's a big problem. I think if you look throughout Africa, there are a lot of female tech entrepreneurs coming up and about, which is amazing to see, and the stuff they're doing. I think the reason that is Africa is very tech savvy and tech driven, and I think we underestimate their potential. And the more you see those females coming up and about, the more you'll see other females coming into this industry, because there are people that they are role models that you look up to.
You spoke about how specifically in Africa female leaders are coming up. Even in South Africa, we're talking the possibility of a female president, and other places in the world. What do you think the change or the bringing in of more female leaders will do to our industry, and also the changes in the world overall?
That's a good question, Esther. I think less politics. Men can be quite political. I think men are very keen to praise themselves where women don't praise themselves enough. Those are two key points, and I think we've got to get rid of the old boys club, and that's where we're still at, which is quite scary, is that, we're in 2015, we need to be moving into a new age and no longer in the dated Mad Men era.
Can I just add my 2 cents to this? Because this is not a male bashing competition, just saying. What you're saying is really interesting, and there's no doubt that women leaders bring such a fresh perspective, and I've been very fortunate in my career to work with amazing women leaders who have taught me a whole bunch. And also where they've been really strong is in the interpersonal soft skills that are really important in modern day management. And I really think that as a male in this industry, there's so much that we can learn from female leaders. In fact, it flabbergasts me that there aren't more of them at the top level. I know that there are plenty at a middle management level, and there are notable examples of South African, especially in the advertising agency, where agencies are run, founded, operated by strong female leaders. So it's really interesting for me, but I'd be quite interested to unpack a little bit around what we can do as an industry to encourage more female leaders to emerge.
So, Dan, I'm going to pull out 3 points from Sheryl Sandberg's book, Lean In, which for me really hit home, and I think we'll talk to a lot of the females listening to this, is number 1, she says sit at the table. So don't, as a female, feel intimidated by higher level C-suite type male management. Join the table, join the conversation. Don't sit back as a female. Secondly, make your partner a real partner, and I think that's really important to be able to balance having a family and work life. You need a partner that's really going to support you in your career. So it's not about having a family and then straight away you're going to become a stay-at-home mom. You should be able to be a working mom, and that does come down to having that equal partnership. And a key point is don't leave before you leave. So a lot of females, whether you're married yet, not married, you are thinking down the line that you will eventually or not have a family. So don't cut any opportunities because of that. Grab every opportunity you have, and having a family will just need to fit and integrate into that. So, don't leave before you leave, and don't cut those opportunities just because you're going to have a family.
Elle, those are amazing insights, and I'd just like to ask you as we close this conversation, if there was one thing that you would take out for Aqua as well as the broader industry, what would it be?
I would say find a role model that's going to drive you. That's really important. Having a role model, it showcases to you that things can be done. So whenever you think, this is ridiculous or I can't do it, if you look up to that role model, it's really important to know that it is possible. So have a role model, have a mentor that can actually help drive you and challenge you, and I think that's the most important thing.
So, Elena, if people want to find out more about this topic or find out more about you, where do they need to go?
Sure. So you can follow me on Twitter at Elena Protulis, or email me elenap@aquaonline.com.
Great, thanks, Elle. And now let's move on to the tool of the week.
Today's tool of the week is NodeXL. NodeXL is a free open source template or an add-in for Microsoft Excel. It basically makes it easy to explore network graphs. So with NodeXL, you enter a set of data into Excel in a worksheet, And based on the pieces of data that connect to each other, you're able to build a graph that represents networks. So as an example of how you'll use this is if you're working with social media data and you want to see the networks and influences that authors have on each other, but also on topics online.
Thanks, Esther, and thank you for listening to the Brave Ideas podcast. If you liked what you heard, please subscribe on iTunes or Stitcher, and while you're there, give us a rating and a review. You can also visit aquagrp.libsyn.com for the complete library of episodes. If you want to keep in touch with me, Dan, you can follow me at elhermo on Twitter and elhermo23 on Snapchat and Instagram. And you can follow Esther.
Simply Esther Mcgeer on Instagram.
Special thank you to Elena Protulis, our special guest. Thanks to Matthew Klawansky for music and production. Thanks to Eros Hos and his team for the art direction. And thank you to JP Singh, managing our social media accounts.
That brings us to the end of the show. And remember, no matter what people tell you, words and ideas can change the world.